My fiancé went and registered his marriage with someone else. I pretended not to know. After traveling abroad for about 3 days, he called. My parents are in the hospital. Why aren't you here yet? I gave a cold laugh. Go find your wife to take care of them. I discovered the truth one seemingly ordinary afternoon. That afternoon, I was still wondering whether to cook sour soup or braised fish for dinner, and a hot coffee cup was still burning my hand in my bag. On the first floor of the Golden Moon Luxury Mall, the jewelry counter shone so brightly that anyone passing by had to squint. I froze in the middle of the crowd because right in front of me, only a dozen or so feet away, was Kyle, my fiancé. The man I had called honey for 3 years. The man who had placed an engagement ring on my finger one windy evening on the Brooklyn Bridge. The man who had promised, I'm here for you whenever you're tired. But that day, Kyle wasn't alone. A girl stood behind him, her hands resting lightly on his shoulders as if it were her right. She leaned down and whispered something in his ear, and Kyle laughed. A familiar laugh that brought pain. He tilted his head, gently rubbing his chin against her cheek. A gesture he had once done with me, when he was choosing a necklace for me at this very counter. I wondered if I still believed that love only needed sincerity. The girl was younger than me, with long, moss-brown hair, wearing a cream-colored dress, her face bright, and features as delicate as a model on a billboard. On her left hand was a ring, its sparkling stone shining so brightly it seemed to prick my eyes. I didn't cry. Strangely, I just stood still. The coffee in my hand was scalding hot, the cool white lights of the jewelry counter casting long shadows of them across the tiled floor. And that shadow, oddly enough, seemed to reach my feet. Then the girl looked up, her gaze sweeping across, stopping exactly where I stood. She saw me. And Kyle? Kyle saw me too. I was sure of it. How could he not see me in that sea of people? Someone who had walked beside him countless times, through rain and sunshine, who had sat with his mother through stifling dinners. But Kyle showed no expression, no surprise, no awkwardness, no panic. He just looked at me as if I were a stranger, then calmly bent down to continue helping the girl try on another ring. My phone vibrated in my bag. I pulled out a message from Kyle. I'm having dinner with the company tonight, don't wait up for me. The message had been sent 1 minute ago. I looked up across the distance. Kyle was holding her waist with one hand, his other hand holding his phone. I heard my heart beat. Not a loud thumping in my chest, but a dry, hollow sound, like someone tapping a piece of empty wood. I squeezed the coffee cup so hard the paper crumpled. I turned and walked through the crowd, heading toward a trash can. As I threw the whole cup in, my wrist trembled uncontrollably, and a few drops of coffee splashed onto the back of my hand, stinging and turning a small patch red. It hurt, but that pain was easier to bear than the ache in my heart. My name is Anna. I'm 30 years old. I've been a designer for a media company in a bustling city for 5 years. My father is a high school teacher. My mother is too. Our home is in an old apartment complex in a working-class district on the city's north side, with worn stone staircases and long corridors where the winter wind whistled. Kyle's family lives on the south side and owns a chain of supermarkets. It wasn't an ostentatious kind of wealth, but enough for people to see that our social standings weren't equal. From the first day I stepped into Kyle's house, I felt it. The first time I came for dinner, his mother, Laura, dressed in an elegant, dark blue dress, with her hair neatly pinned up, sat on the leather sofa, looking me up and down before giving a slight nod. Have a seat. Dinner lasted nearly 2 hours. She asked what my parents did, how much they earned, how big our house was. Then she gave a faint smile. Design? That's an all-right profession, but it mainly thrives on youth. Kyle's father, Mr. Anderson, was a man of few words. But when he heard I lived in an old apartment complex, he put down his chopsticks and frowned. That neighborhood isn't worth much. After you marry, you'll need a proper place to live. Kyle squeezed my hand under the table, laughing. We'll think about that later. Dad, relax. I thought later meant things would get better someday, but Kyle's later turned out to be just a way for him to postpone everything I needed. Our engagement party was simply held in his backyard, with only a few dozen close relatives. His mother said, "Young people are practical now. Appearances aren't important." The engagement gift his mother gave was $66,000. My parents added $44,000, totaling $110,000, telling me to keep it as capital. When his mother found out, she called my mother and said something that left my mother standing silently on the balcony for a very long time. "You're too generous. But for our family, that's just a small token." Since the engagement, Kyle had been busy. He took over managing several stores and came home late. Some nights I'd wake up in the middle of the night, reach over, and find only a cold pillow. I stared at the ceiling, feeling like an object placed in the wrong spot. We planned to marry in the fall, but every time I brought it up, his mother had a reason. Sometimes it was business, sometimes an elder's illness, sometimes waiting for the new house to be finished to be worthy. That new house was in his family's name. "I wasn't allowed to see the blueprints," Kyle said. "His mother is handling everything. You don't need to trouble yourself." One weekend, his family called me over to discuss something important. When I arrived, Kyle hadn't returned. His mother brewed tea, then slid a stack of papers across the table to me. A prenuptial agreement. Page after page listed houses, cars, money, shares, all belonging to Kyle, none related to me. Finally, there was a commitment page requiring me not to participate in any of his family's business affairs after marriage. His mother lightly blew on the surface of her tea, then spoke, her voice low but sharp. "It's best to be clear these days to avoid complications. You know your family situation, right? It's better to discuss this up front." I asked, "Does Kyle know about this?" She smiled. "He knows. He's too soft-hearted to say it, so I have to." Kyle returned, saw the papers, briefly stiffened, then smiled as if nothing was amiss. "Don't overthink it. It's just a formality. I'm yours." I asked directly, "Then why do I need to sign?" He paused. "It's the elders' wishes. You understand, right?" That evening, on the way home in the car, I asked to see the blueprints for the new house. Kyle sighed. "Just let my mother handle it. She's working so hard." I looked out the window, suddenly feeling too tired to argue anymore. Not because I was losing, but because I understood I was talking to someone who would always choose his family over us. And then came this afternoon, the jewelry counter at Golden Moon Luxury Mall, like a definitive end. I went home, washed my face, looked in the mirror, and practiced smiling. I opened my phone. Kyle's profile picture was still the one taken by the lake. He had his arm around my shoulder, smiling brightly, as if he had never betrayed me. I had intended to text, "I saw you," but my finger stopped. I deleted everything. At 7 p.m., Kyle came home, carrying a box of food from my favorite restaurant. He changed his shoes, hung up his coat. Everything was as smooth as a daily play. "I bought you your favorite dish." I sat on the sofa, looking at him. "Where did you go this afternoon?" He didn't blink. "I was running around to a few stores. I'm exhausted." He leaned down to kiss me, but I turned my face away. Kyle froze. "What's wrong?" I asked, my voice strangely calm. "Can we stop?" He stood up straight as if someone had splashed cold water on him. "Stop what?" "Stop the engagement. Stop the wedding." The room fell silent. Only the ticking of the clock remained. Kyle looked at me in disbelief. "What are you saying, Anna?" I looked straight into his eyes. In that moment, I didn't want to scream, didn't want to cry. I just wanted to say it cleanly, like cutting a rotten rope. "Kyle, I'm tired. I don't want to be an outsider in my own life anymore." He panicked, beginning to make promises. "I'll talk to my mother. You don't have to sign the agreement. I'll show you anything you want for the new house. Let's go away for a few days, so you can relax." I shook my head. "No need." Kyle suddenly became angry. "You're overreacting. We're engaged. Everyone in the family knows." "Are you saying we just call it off now?" I let out a soft laugh. "So you're keeping me for the sake of appearances, not because you cherish me." Kyle choked. He looked at me, his lips trembling. For the first time, I saw a hint of fear in him. But that fear wasn't about losing me, but about the collapse of the image he was trying to maintain. That night, we slept in separate rooms. I was in the living room, Kyle in the bedroom. I heard him pacing, making phone calls in a very low voice. Sometimes he called someone, a faint Vicky passing through, then fell silent. I lay staring at the ceiling, the back of my hand still showing the red burn mark. I suddenly realized that what woke me up wasn't a ring or another woman, but Kyle's composure when he saw me at the jewelry counter. So composed that I understood he was used to seeing me as someone who would always yield, always wait, always swallow things down. If I didn't step out of his life now, I would step out of my own. I barely slept that night, not because of fear or lingering affection that I couldn't break free from, but because I felt something in my heart drop to the bottom, a soft thud, then absolute silence. That silence was more terrifying than an argument. It was like all the warmth being drained from a room, leaving behind cold tiles, cold walls. Even the smell of the blankets and pillows felt cold. As dawn approached, I heard the bedroom door open. Kyle walked out into the living room. He stood still for a moment behind me. I pretended to be asleep. I heard him sigh, then soft footsteps as if he was afraid to wake me, followed by the sound of him picking up his coat. He left without knocking on the living room door, without saying, "Anna, let's talk." He left quietly, just as he had quietly stood at the jewelry counter with that other girl. I sat bolt upright when the door finally closed. Outside, it was still dark, the streetlights filtering through the curtain gap as a pale yellow streak. I looked around this small rented apartment, the old wooden dining table, the gas stove, the sink, how many things in this home I had chosen, I had bought. Some things Kyle had contributed money for, some I had paid for myself, because he often said to save money for big things. The big things were the new house, the wedding, the things always in his mother's hands. The small things were the meals I cooked, the light bulbs I changed, the times I stayed up waiting for him late at night. Now, looking back, I felt I had lived more like a housekeeper than a future wife. I turned on the light, opened the closet. I didn't plan to make a scene. I just wanted to leave in an orderly fashion. I pulled out my suitcase, an old gray one, its zipper making a grating, bitter sound. I folded clothes, each shirt, each pair of pants, neatly, as if folding a chapter to put away. From a deep drawer, I took out a velvet box, the engagement ring. The stone inside sparkled under the light, still beautiful, still cold. I looked at it for a very long time, then placed it back in the box, not taking it with me. I thought, what has left my hand? Let it remain where it belongs. I didn't want to carry a reminder of betrayal. My phone vibrated. A message from Kyle. "I'm heading to the office early. Don't do anything on your own. Understand?" His words made me laugh. A laugh that stung my nose. He still spoke as if I were a child, as if I would obey simply because he ordered me to. I didn't reply. I called my mother. She answered immediately, her voice still sleepy. "Anna, why are you calling at this hour? What's wrong?" I choked a little. I tried to keep my voice normal. "Mom, can I come home for dinner today? I want to see you and Dad." My mother paused, as if sensing something was wrong. "Of course. But tell me, is something going on?" I looked at the suitcase, at this apartment, then said softly, "Kyle and I probably won't get married anymore." "Mom." The sleepy tone was gone from the other end of the line. My mother gasped. "Why? Did you two argue? Or did his mother again?" I didn't want to tell her everything over the phone. I just said, "I'll tell you when I get home. Don't worry, I'm okay." I hung up and continued packing. I gathered Kyle's belongings, leaving them in a corner of the room: a few shirts, a set of pajamas, his toothbrush, his razor. I put everything into a cardboard box and sealed it with tape. I placed it by the door. I wrote on a small piece of paper, "Your things." At 8 a.m., the sound of a key in the lock. Kyle walked in. He saw the suitcase and the box, and his face changed quickly, from surprise to annoyance. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice harsh. I zipped up my suitcase, stood straight. "I'm moving out." Kyle stepped forward and grabbed my wrist. "Anna, calm down. You were upset yesterday. I don't blame you. But you can't just leave like this. I slowly removed his hand. You've done many things on your own, too. Why didn't you ask me first? Kyle froze. He looked at me, his eyes red from lack of sleep. What veiled accusation are you making now? Yesterday you avoided me. You said to stop the wedding. I thought about it all night. I'll make arrangements. I'll talk to my mother. Don't overreact. I looked at him closely. I didn't see the panic of a man about to lose the one he loves. I saw the frustration of a man losing control. He wanted to pull me back to the old place, to make everything calm again. Not because he understood my pain, but because he feared disruption. I said softly, Kyle, I told you, I'm tired. I don't want this anymore. Kyle slammed his hand on the table. What do you want? Do you want me to abandon my mother? My mother does everything for me, for our future. You should understand. I heard the phrase for our future, and found it amusing. Whose future? Your family's future. What about my future? I asked, my voice still calm. He fell silent, just as he did every time I asked about my right to see the new house blueprints, about the bedroom, about the things I needed. Then he changed his tone, softening it like honey. Anna, I'll take you to lunch today. Let's talk properly. Don't make your parents worry. If the elders find out, it'll be an embarrassment for both families. The word embarrassment appeared again. I suddenly understood that in his family, honor always came before feelings. I nodded slightly. All right, but I'm still leaving. Kyle looked at me as if he couldn't believe I would actually do it. He pulled out his phone and made a call. I heard him speak softly, Mom, don't come over here, I can handle it. Then he hung up. He turned to me. Wait a moment. I'll take you. I didn't want to ride in the same car as him anymore, but I also didn't want to make a scene here. I just said, I'll call my own car. Don't follow me. Kyle was about to say something, but his phone vibrated again. He looked at the screen, his expression suddenly tense. I saw the name Vicky flash, and he quickly dismissed it, but I had already seen it. My heart felt as if someone had touched a fresh bruise. I didn't ask. I didn't need to ask. Some things become true without verbal confirmation. I pulled my suitcase toward the door. Kyle followed, his voice lowered. Anna, listen to me. Go home to your parents for a day or two and calm down. I don't want to lose you. I turned back to look at him. Do you know what it feels like to be treated as an outsider? Do you know what it feels like to stand in front of you and see you look at me like a stranger? I spoke each word, heavy as stone. You say you don't want to lose me, but from beginning to end, you never chose me even once. Kyle stood frozen. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Finally, he just uttered, You're being unreasonable. I gave a faint smile. Yes, I'm unreasonable because I refuse to put up with it anymore. I went downstairs and called a ride to my parents' house. The familiar road led back to the old apartment complex, the rows of trees, the small shops, the sounds of life, everything simple and warm. I felt my heart ache, because here, I wasn't anyone's future daughter-in-law. I was just my parents' daughter. My mother opened the door, looked at me and the suitcase, and her eyes immediately reddened. My father came out from inside, his leg dragging slightly from an old injury, looked at me for a long time, then asked, What's wrong, my dear? I put the suitcase down, knelt right in front of my father, and held his hand. Dad, I'm sorry. I chose the wrong person. My mother sat down beside me, her voice trembling. What did they do to you, my child? I told them. I didn't recount every humiliating detail. I only told them enough for my parents to understand. My future mother-in-law making me sign an agreement, treating me like a stranger. The issue of the bedroom, Kyle not defending me, and the fact that I saw him at the jewelry counter with another girl, and he still texted me not to wait for dinner. My father fell silent. My mother clutched her chest, tears streaming down her face. She said, My child, why did you endure so much? I rested my head on my mother's shoulder, my voice hoarse, because I thought love could earn respect. I was wrong. My father placed his hand on my head, his voice slow and firm. All right, you're home now. Get some rest. A woman marries and goes to a new home. If that home doesn't consider you one of their own, then don't step into it. When I heard that, tears fell. But this time they were tears of relief. That afternoon, Kyle called. I didn't answer. His messages came continuously. Don't overreact. My mother is sick. Come back and talk. Then another message chilled me. Anna, think carefully. If you do this, you'll be at a disadvantage. I looked at the screen and clearly saw he wasn't apologizing. He was threatening me. He reminded me of the disadvantage as if I were a discounted item. My mother, sitting beside me, tried to take the phone from my hand to speak to him, but I held on to it. I didn't want my mother to hear words that would hurt her. I just sent a very short message. Don't contact me anymore. That night, our family dinner consisted of vegetable soup, braised fish, and a plate of fried eggs, a simple meal that tasted better than any elaborate dinner at Kyle's house. After eating, my mother cleared the dishes, and my father brewed tea. I sat looking at the old wooden table, at my mother's hands, at my father's posture. I suddenly understood that some things, though seemingly small, are the foundation that is decency. Later that night, my phone vibrated again. An unknown number. I answered. Kyle's voice on the other end was tired, but resentful. Anna, do you think running home to your parents solves everything? You're putting me in a difficult position. Do you think you're so innocent? I tightened my grip on the phone. I no longer trembled as before. I asked calmly, "What do you want to say?" Kyle paused, then spoke each word as if biting them off. Do you know who that girl is? Do you know what you're getting yourself into? In that moment, a chill ran down my spine. Not because of jealousy, but because I realized there was something behind Kyle, behind his family, that might be deeper and darker than what I had seen at the jewelry counter. I hung up. I sat in the darkness of my room for a very long time. Listening to my parents talking quietly in the living room, I wondered what Kyle had truly hidden from me and why he was so confident he dared to speak to me as if I were the one in the wrong. I barely slept that night, not because I missed Kyle, nor because I regretted the broken engagement, but because his words on the phone kept replaying in my head like the ticking of a clock against my temple. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? A statement half threat, half warning, not from a man regretting his actions, but from someone who believed he held something powerful enough to make me back down. I woke up early the next morning and helped my mother prepare breakfast. My mother looked at me, her voice softer than usual. Did you sleep well last night? I shook my head. I'm fine, Mom. My mother didn't ask further, just placed a warm bowl of porridge in my hands. That warmth spread from my fingertips to my chest, making me realize I wasn't as numb as I thought. My father sat at the table, reading the newspaper, but his eyes weren't really on the words. He put the newspaper down and said slowly, "Take a few days off work to clear your head." I nodded. I wasn't ready to sit in front of a computer, not ready to pretend everything was normal when my heart was still in disarray. My phone vibrated an incoming call from Uncle Tom, Kyle's cousin. I paused. Uncle Tom was one of the rare people in Kyle's family who had ever spoken to me kindly. I answered. "Hello, Uncle." His voice on the other end was deep, with a hint of remorse. "Anna, you're at your parents' house, right?" I replied. "Yes, I am," he sighed. "I don't know what to say. Kyle is very upset. His mother has been crying nonstop. Could you meet me for a moment? I want to talk to you alone." I glanced at my mother. She shook her head very slightly, but I felt there were some things that couldn't be avoided. I told him, "Yes, Uncle. Please give me half an hour. I'll meet you at the coffee shop at the end of the street." I put on my coat and went out. The sky was overcast, and the wind blew through the trees, making dry leaves rustle. The coffee shop was empty. Uncle Tom arrived before me, his shirt wrinkled, his face tired. He looked at me, his eyes holding both pity and helplessness. "Anna, I'm sorry. You're the one who's been hurt the most in this." I sat down, unsure how to respond. He continued, "Kyle's mother has a quick temper, and the family is very traditional, but Kyle is also in a difficult position. He told me he doesn't want to lose you, and he said what happened at the jewelry counter was just a misunderstanding. I let out a soft laugh. Uncle, I saw it with my own eyes. I'm not blind. Uncle Tom was silent for a moment, then lowered his voice. Anna, do you know who that girl is? I shook my head. He said, she's Victoria, the daughter of a major business partner of Kyle's family. Her family is investing capital to open more stores. Kyle was pressured to spend time with her, do you understand? I tightened my grip on the coffee cup. So, I'm not just a future daughter-in-law who's being looked down upon, I'm also a backup plan, aren't I, Uncle? Uncle Tom grimaced. I'm not defending his family. But think about it. You and Kyle have been in a relationship for 3 years. If you leave now, you'll be at a disadvantage. I looked up at him. Uncle, you sound just like Kyle. Everyone says I'll be at a disadvantage, but no one asks if I'm hurting. He sighed, not adding anything more. Before leaving, he only said, if you change your mind, I'll speak up for you. I returned home exhausted. I realized that in the eyes of Kyle's family, I had never been Anna. I was a position on a chessboard, a pawn that could be sacrificed if needed. At noon, I received a text message from Vicky. It was an unknown number, but the profile picture was the girl I had seen at the jewelry counter. The message was short. Anna, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you and Kyle hadn't broken up. I want to meet you to talk. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't want to meet her, but then I felt curious, not out of jealousy, but because I wanted to know who I was, in her eyes, a victim or an obstacle. We arranged to meet at a small tea shop. Vicky arrived wearing a simple dress, without heavy makeup like the day at the mall. She bowed her head as soon as she sat down. I'm sorry, Anna. I looked at her. She was very young, her eyes still full of confusion. What are you sorry for? Vicky's voice trembled. For trusting Kyle. He said you were an ex, that you two had broken up. I didn't know he was still living with you. I didn't feel angry. I just found it sad. So, he lied to both of us. Vicky nodded, tears falling. My family is doing business with his family. My parents are very supportive of us. I don't dare go against them, but I don't want to be a third party. I remained silent, my hands trembling. Can you please forgive me? I pulled my hand back, not out of hatred. You don't owe me an apology. The person you should ask is yourself, whether you can accept being a part of that arrangement. Vicky bowed her head and said nothing more. That night, Kyle came to my house. He stood downstairs, calling me. Anna, come down and talk to me. My father was about to go out, but I held him back. Dad, let me handle it. Kyle stood there, his shirt disheveled, his eyes bloodshot. He looked at me like a drowning man clutching a log. Anna, listen to me. Things aren't what you think. I folded my arms. Go on, Kyle gasped. The thing with Vicky is because my family pressured me. I have nothing with her. That day, it was just choosing a ring for a business partner. I laughed. A business partner who stands behind you, whispers in your ear, and you rub your chin against her cheek? Kyle was speechless. He changed his tone, lowering it. Anna, I made a mistake, but you also have to understand me. I'm caught between two sides. You're the one I love. I looked at him and felt tired. Kyle, do you love me, or do you need me to maintain the image of a man with a fiancé? He bristled. What kind of talk is that? I spoke very slowly. You never chose me over your family, over your own interests. So what kind of love is that? Kyle fell silent. After a moment, he said, Don't push me to the wall. If you do this, my mother won't be able to handle it. She's been hospitalized because of the shock. My heart ached slightly, but then I felt something cold. He was using his mother to pressure me again. I asked, What's wrong with your mother? Kyle evaded. High blood pressure. If you don't care about me, at least care about her. Go visit her for a moment. I shook my head. I'm not your family's daughter-in-law. I have no obligation. Kyle became angry. You're truly heartless. I looked him straight in the eyes. Are you saying heartless, or are you angry because I won't do what you want anymore? He didn't answer. He turned and left, throwing back, Anna, you'll regret this. I stood at the bottom of the stairs for a long time. I didn't cry. I just felt that the man I once loved had become a stranger. 3 days later, I received a call from an unknown number. A woman's shrill voice on the other end said, Is this Anna? I'm Kyle's mother. Do you have no shame? You've caused my son such misery, and you dare to hide at your parents' house? I held my breath. This was the first time she had called me directly. I kept my voice calm. Hello, Mrs. Anderson, she snapped. Don't call me Mrs. Anderson. You're not worthy. Who do you think you are to cancel an engagement? I gripped the phone tightly. I'm not canceling. I'm just not continuing. She sneered. Do you think you're so valuable? For a girl from your family, my son agreeing to marry you was a blessing. I heard every word like a sharp cut, but strangely, I no longer felt the pain I had before. I only clearly saw the true face of the woman I had once called my future mother-in-law. I replied, Then I politely return that blessing to your family. She was silent for a second, then shrieked, You ungrateful wretch. I hung up. That evening, I sat by the window, looking at the streetlights outside. I realized that the further I got from Kyle, the clearer everything became. My love for him was real. But the way he treated me was also real, and those two realities weren't enough to keep me there. I wondered why Kyle and his family were so afraid of me. Were they afraid of what I might say, or afraid that I would no longer remain silent? The phrase, "Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" echoed in my head again. This time, I no longer felt fear. I felt curiosity, a cold curiosity. Perhaps beyond the ring at the jewelry counter, beyond Vicky, beyond the prenuptial agreement, there was another layer of truth I hadn't touched, and I knew I wouldn't turn back, no matter what lay ahead. After the call from Kyle's mother, I thought I would collapse, but strangely, I didn't. I just felt an empty space in my heart, like someone had just torn down a rotten wall, revealing cold but solid ground. I told my parents everything. My mother sat silently for a very long time, then sighed. My child, they disrespect you so much. Why would you still regret anything? My father didn't say much, just nodded. Anna, don't get involved with their family anymore. I intended to listen to my parents. I intended to cut ties completely, but some things can't be let go with just one decision. Not because I still loved Kyle, but because a strange feeling lingered, a feeling that I hadn't seen the whole truth. That afternoon, Uncle Tom called again, his voice deeper than before. Anna, are you free? I want to see you again. I hesitated. My mother looked at me, shaking her head, but I still told him, Yes, Uncle, please tell me. Uncle Tom met me at a small diner near his house. When I arrived, he was already seated, with 2 glasses of iced tea in front of him. He looked at me, his eyes no longer conciliatory, but worried. Anna, I'll be blunt. Be careful with Kyle's family. My heart tightened slightly. What do you mean, Uncle? Uncle Tom bowed his head, his voice low. Vicky isn't just a partner's daughter. Her father is listed as owning part of the capital in the new supermarket chain, but in reality, it's disguised as a loan. Kyle's family owes them a lot of money. If they can't marry Vicky, the other side might withdraw their capital and force them to repay the debt. I froze. The pieces in my mind started to fit together. I asked, So what about me? Uncle Tom looked at me and sighed. I think Kyle genuinely loved you at first, but when the business problems intensified, you became an unprofitable option. His mother forced him to keep you as an official fiancé while secretly pursuing Vicky. If Vicky agreed to marry him, you would be pushed aside. If Vicky didn't agree, you would still be the official wife, maintaining the family's image. My throat felt dry. So, from beginning to end, I was just a pawn? Uncle Tom nodded, not daring to look at me. I'm sorry. I couldn't intervene. His mother made all the decisions. I sat still for a very long time. I remembered the times Kyle delayed the wedding, the times his mother pressured me to sign the prenuptial agreement, the times he avoided me when I asked about the new house. It turned out it wasn't because he was busy, but because he wasn't sure if I would still be the final bride. I asked Uncle Tom, "Why are you telling me all this?" Uncle Tom looked at me, "Because I feel sorry for you, and because I'm afraid you'll get dragged into trouble if you keep contacting Kyle." I returned home in a daze. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just felt a cold sensation creep up my spine. I understood why Kyle said, "Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" It wasn't about feelings, but about money. That evening, Vicky texted me again. "Anna, can I meet you one more time? I need to talk urgently." I looked at the message, then at my parents watching TV in the living room. I hesitated, but then I texted back, "Where?" We met in the parking lot of the Golden Moon Luxury Mall, the same place where I had seen her with Kyle, a strange circle. Vicky looked haggard, her eyes sunken, her lips pale. She spoke as soon as she saw me. "Anna, I'm about to be forced to marry Kyle." I was no longer surprised. I just asked, "What do you want from me?" Vicky trembled. "I don't want to marry him, but my parents are forcing me. My father says if I don't marry him, our family will face huge financial problems." I looked at her, seeing genuine fear in her eyes. I asked, "Do you know about his family's debts yet?" Vicky nodded. "I know. My father says if we marry, our two families will merge capital, effectively canceling the debt. If not, my father will withdraw his investment." I gave a faint smile. "So, what do you think his family will do if you don't marry him?" Vicky was silent. After a moment, she said softly, "They might try to shift the blame to you." My heart pounded. "Shift the blame how?" Vicky shook her head. "I don't know, but his mother said that your breaking off the engagement was ungrateful, that it was destroying both families' businesses. She said if necessary, she would have people spread rumors about you, sue you for defamation of character." I heard that and found it amusing. "Defamation of character? What character?" Vicky gripped my hand. "Anna, please, be careful. I don't want you to get into trouble because of me." I pulled my hand back, my voice calm. "Worry about yourself first. You don't owe me anything, but I'll give you a piece of advice. If you marry Kyle for money, you'll live your whole life in fear." Vicky cried. She said, "I'm not as strong as you." I looked at her, seeing an image of myself a few months ago, when I still thought that just enduring would solve everything. That night, Kyle called again. This time his voice was much softer. "Anna, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. Come back to me. Let's forget everything and start over." I asked, "Do you owe Vicky's family money?" The other end of the line went silent. I clearly heard his breathing. I gave a cold laugh. "You can't answer, can you?" Kyle spoke urgently. "Anna, the financial matters are for the adults to worry about. Don't get involved. You just need to trust me." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Trust you like I trusted you when you said Vicky was just a business partner. Trusted you when you said you had nothing with her." Kyle became angry. "Are you investigating me? You've got too much free time." I calmly replied, "I'm not investigating. People are telling me themselves." Kyle fell silent. After a moment, he said softly, "Anna, don't mess up my plans." I laughed. "So finally you're telling the truth. I'm just getting in your way." Kyle bristled. "How much do you want?" "Name your price, I'll compensate you." That sentence felt like a slap. My cheeks burned. "What do you think I am? A commodity?" Kyle was silent. Then he said, "Anna, don't make a big deal out of this. Settle down, and I won't let you lose anything." I hung up. I sat in my room for a very long time. I thought about our 3 years together. I thought about the times I had endured to keep the peace. I thought about the way his entire family treated me like something to be traded. For the first time, I felt no regret. I only felt a cold determination. I told my parents, "Mom, Dad, if Kyle's family does anything, I won't stay silent anymore." My father looked at me, his eyes serious. "Do what you have to do, but remember you're not in the wrong." My mother held my hand. "Don't be afraid. Your father and I are here." I understood that I had stepped out of a trap, but that trap wasn't letting go. it still intended to drag me down with it, and this time, I wouldn't run away. After that night, I began living in a strange state. No longer crying, no longer panicking, no longer hoping Kyle would turn back. Instead, there was a cold clarity, like someone who had just recovered from a high-fever body, exhausted but mind unusually sharp. I returned to work. Colleagues asked a few questions. I just smiled and said we broke up, not elaborating. I didn't want to turn my pain into office gossip. But Kyle's family wouldn't leave me alone. 3 days later, a strange man came to my company. He wore a gray suit and introduced himself as a lawyer for Kyle's family. He handed me an envelope, saying very politely, "Miss Anna, Mr. Anderson's family would like to invite you to discuss the termination of the engagement. If that's inconvenient, we will send a formal document." I opened the envelope on the spot. Inside was an agreement to terminate the engagement. The content stated, in essence, I unilaterally broke off the engagement, damaging the Anderson family's reputation and causing emotional distress. It requested me to sign an acknowledgement not to make any further claims and to accept a goodwill compensation of $500,000. I finished reading, my hands trembling with anger, not because of the amount of money, but because of the way they had written it, as if I were the guilty party. That evening, I took the document home for my parents to see. My mother read every line, her face paling. "Oh my God, what do they think of you?" My father slammed his hand on the table. "Unreasonable! You're not in the wrong. Don't sign this." I nodded. "I won't sign it, but I'm afraid they won't stop here." Indeed, 2 days later, articles began appearing online, vaguely defamatory. A girl from humble beginnings, engaged to a wealthy scion, became greedy and demanding. When her demands weren't met, she broke off the engagement, causing her future mother-in-law to be hospitalized. No names were mentioned, but anyone who knew me could guess who it was. My phone rang constantly, colleagues asked, friends asked, relatives asked. Some believed me, some were skeptical. My mother cried, "Why are they so cruel, my child?" I felt a strange anger welling up inside me, not blind rage, but a clear, sober anger. I realized that if I remained silent, they would take it as an admission. I called Uncle Tom. "Uncle, Kyle's family is slandering me. I don't want to escalate this, but if they continue, I will fight back." Uncle Tom sighed. "Anna, I anticipated this. His mother's tactic is to pressure you into accepting the money and staying silent." I asked, "Do you have any evidence of their family's debts?" Uncle Tom was silent for a very long time. Then he said, "I have some internal documents, but if I give them to you, I'll become a traitor to my family." I spoke slowly. "Uncle, I don't want to involve you, but I also don't want to be trampled upon." Uncle Tom gave a sad laugh. "I understand. Let me think." That evening, Vicky called me. She was sobbing. "Anna, his mother is slandering you everywhere. My father told me to cut off all contact with you. I can't take it anymore." I asked, "What do you plan to do?" Vicky's voice trembled. "I want to run away, but I'm afraid of my parents." I sighed. "Vicky, you're at a crossroads just like me. If you don't dare to step forward, you'll be dragged into a marriage with no way out." Vicky stopped crying. "You're really strong, Anna." I gave a faint laugh. "I'm not strong. I just have no way back." The next morning, Kyle came to my company. He stood outside the door and called me out. Colleagues looked at me with curious eyes. I walked out. Kyle looked thinner, his eyes sunken, but his gaze still carried that old confidence. "Anna, you've gone too far," he said immediately. I looked at him. "Did you come to apologize or to threaten me?" Kyle frowned. "You're slandering my family online, and now you're pretending to be innocent?" I laughed. "Do you have proof, or are you just used to blaming me?" Kyle lowered his voice. "Anna, sign the agreement. I'll give you more money. Stay silent, and everything ends." I looked at him with disgust. "Do you think I need your money?" Kyle gritted his teeth. "Don't act so superior. Do you think you can win against my family?" I spoke very slowly. "Do you think I'm sure to lose?" Kyle looked at me for a moment, then said, "Anna, You don't understand. This involves a lot of money. The bigger you make it, the more dangerous it becomes for you. I remembered the phrase, "Do you know what you're getting yourself into?" I felt my heart beat slower. So he was afraid too. Kyle fell silent again. Then he changed his tone. "Come back to me. I'll handle everything. You'll be my wife. No one will dare to touch you." I shook my head. "Are you worried about me? Or are you worried about my words?" Kyle's face turned red. He bristled. "You're truly unreasonable." I looked him straight in the eye. "And you're truly shameless." Kyle left, slamming the gate shut. That evening, Uncle Tom called me, his voice tired. "Anna, I've decided. I don't want to live my whole life with the feeling that I stayed silent when I saw someone else being harmed." He arranged to meet me. He handed me a stack of photocopied papers, loan agreements between Kyle's family and Vicky's father, wire transfer receipts, and a ledger of outstanding debts. He said Kyle's family was deeply in the red. If Vicky didn't marry Kyle, the other side would withdraw their capital and they could go bankrupt. I held the papers, my hands trembling. Not out of fear, but because I understood that from this moment on, I was no longer a pawn. I was holding a knife. I asked him, "Are you sure these documents are real?" He nodded. "They're real, but if you release them, you'll be dragged into a very dirty fight." I looked at him. "Uncle, I don't want to fight. I just want them to stop." He sighed. "With that family, if you're weak, they'll suppress you. If you're strong, they'll be afraid." I went home and told my parents everything. My mother clutched her chest. "My child, maybe it's better to stay silent and move somewhere else." My father shook his head. "No, we can't back down this time. If you retreat, they'll pursue you to the end." I sat in my room, looking at the stack of papers. I no longer felt like a 30-year-old girl who had just broken up with her boyfriend. I felt like I was standing at a boundary. On one side, silence, money, humiliation. On the other, confrontation, potentially losing many things. My phone vibrated. A message from Vicky. "Anna, I've been forced to sign the marriage certificate." My heart tightened. I called Vicky immediately. She was crying. "Anna, I can't escape. My father said if I don't sign, he'll commit suicide." I closed my eyes. I understood everything was going too far. I told Vicky, my voice very firm, each word clear. "Vicky, listen to me. Don't sign anything else. If they force you, record it. You are not alone." Vicky choked. "Anna, what are you going to do?" I looked out the window where the sky was darkening. "I'm going to do what I should have done from the beginning, not remain silent anymore." I knew that once I took another step, there would be no turning back. After Vicky's message, I sat motionless for a long time. The feeling in my heart was no longer pain or anger, but a heavy weight, as if someone had placed a cold stone on my chest. I understood that from that moment on, this was no longer just about me and Kyle. It had become a whirlpool, dragging another girl into it, and behind it were adults ready to use any means to achieve their goals. I told my parents about Vicky being forced to sign the marriage certificate. My mother sank onto a chair. "Oh my God, are they really that wicked?" My father was silent for a very long time, then said slowly, "Don't get involved any further. Focus on yourself first." I shook my head. "Dad, if I can't save Vicky, I can't save myself either. If I stay silent, they'll continue to oppress others." My father looked at me, his eyes mixed with worry and pride. "If you've made up your mind, I won't stop you, but you must be careful. That family is not simple." I called Vicky. She answered immediately, her voice hoarse. "Anna," I said very slowly, each word clear. "Vicky, listen to me. Don't sign any more documents beyond what you've already signed. Keep a copy. Record every conversation. Text me whenever they pressure you to do something, and don't be alone." Vicky cried, "I'm so scared, Anna." His mother said, "If I don't marry him, she'll ruin your reputation." I closed my eyes. Let her talk. "You just need to protect yourself first. I'll handle the rest." I hung up and sat alone in my room, looking at the documents Uncle Tom gave me. I understood that if I released everything, Kyle's family could collapse, but I also understood that I would become a target. They wouldn't leave me alone. The next morning, a package arrived at my house, with no sender. Inside were printed photos. Kyle and I together when we first started dating, me sitting in a bar with a male colleague, me standing in front of his apartment building along with a piece of paper. Don't cause trouble, know your place and stay safe. My mother looked at the photos, her hands trembling. My child, they're threatening you. I felt a chill run down my spine, not out of fear, but because I understood they had begun to act. I called Uncle Tom. Uncle, they sent me threatening photos. Uncle Tom sighed. Anna, I expected this. Are you sure you still want to proceed? I looked at the piece of paper on the table. Uncle, if I stop now, they won't spare me. They'll see me as weak. He was silent, then said, Then you must act quickly and decisively. Don't give them time to counterattack. At noon, I received a call from Kyle's mother. Her voice was shrill, barely concealing her anger. Anna, you're very clever. You dare to incite Vicky to defy my family. I kept my voice calm. I'm not inciting anyone. I'm just advising her to protect herself. She sneered. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're so innocent? Do you know I have those photos of you? I gripped the phone tightly. What do you want? Her voice turned icy cold. Sign the agreement, take the money, and keep your mouth shut. I guarantee your peace. I replied very slowly, I don't need money. I just need you to stop. She scoffed. Are you dreaming? If you don't stay silent, I'll let everyone know what kind of person you are. I said, Then go ahead. I have nothing left to lose. She was silent for a moment, then snarled, This girl truly knows no fear. I hung up. That afternoon, I left work early to meet with a lawyer, a friend of my father's recommendation. I showed him the documents from Uncle Tom and told him everything. The lawyer read them very carefully, then said, These documents are sufficient to prove they show signs of fraud, financial misconduct, and forced marriage. But you must be prepared. They will retaliate against you. I asked, Can I win? He looked at me. You're not as weak as you think, but this will be a long battle. That evening, Kyle came to my house again. He stood outside the gate and called me out. I didn't want to meet him, but my father said, Go out and finish this. Don't let him loiter around our house. Kyle looked at me, his eyes tired and irritated. Anna, you're crazy. You dared to incite Vicky to defy my family. I said, Don't blame me. I'm no longer part of your family. Kyle gritted his teeth. Do you think you're scaring me? I looked him straight in the eye. I don't need you to be scared. I just need you to stop. Kyle gave a faint laugh. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? My family has connections. If you make a big deal out of this, you won't be safe. I remembered the note. Know your place and stay safe. I spoke very calmly. You've also just encountered someone who has nothing left to lose. Kyle was silent. After a moment, he lowered his voice. Anna, I'll give you one more chance. Take back everything. I'll still marry you. You'll still be my wife. I laughed. Do you think I still want to be your wife? Kyle's face changed color. Don't think you're so valuable. I replied, I'm not valuable. I just won't sell myself short anymore. Kyle left, slamming the gate shut. That night, Vicky called me. She whispered, Anna, I managed to record it. His mother said if I don't marry him, she'll accuse you of swindling the engagement money. I closed my eyes. Send it to me. When I listened to the recording, I felt a chill run through my entire body. Not out of fear, but because I understood they were ready to fabricate stories to push me to the brink. I sent the recording to the lawyer. I sat in my room, watching the clock tick, minute by minute. I no longer felt like I was getting revenge on anyone. I just felt like I was standing up for the first time to protect myself. And I knew that from this moment on, I had truly stepped into the battle Kyle had warned me about. But this time, I wasn't backing down. After hearing Vicky's recording, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, Kyle's mother's cold, sharp voice echoed in my head, each word like a knife. I was no longer surprised, just found it sad. It turned out that in their eyes, I was merely a pawn from beginning to end, easily sacrificed at any time. The next morning, I took my father to the hospital for a follow-up on his leg. My father sat in a wheelchair, looked at me, and said in a deep voice, "Don't try to appear strong in front of your parents. If you're afraid, just say so." I smiled, but my throat tightened. "I am scared, Dad, but I'm more scared of looking back later and seeing myself as a coward." My father held my hand very tightly. "Your mother and I are not rich. We don't have connections, but we stand behind you." At the hospital, when my father went in for an X-ray, I sat in the hallway and opened my phone. The lawyer texted, "Anna, the recording is very important. If they continue to threaten you, inform me immediately. We will file a complaint." I nodded, even though I knew he couldn't see. A moment later, Vicky texted, "Anna, I've been taken to my husband's family's house. His mother said she won't let me go out alone anymore." My heart tightened. I called Vicky immediately, but she didn't answer. I understood her phone might be monitored. That afternoon, when I returned home, I saw two strangers waiting at the door, a middle-aged man in a white shirt and a neat tie, and a younger woman with a cold face. The man stepped forward. "Are you Anna? I am a lawyer representing Mr. Kyle Anderson's family." I looked at him. "What do you want?" He smiled very politely. "Mr. Anderson's family wants to negotiate. We hope to resolve this amicably." My mother, standing behind me, tugged my hand. "My child, don't stand outside the gate. Invite them in to talk." I knew my mother was afraid of the neighbors gossiping. I nodded and let them into the living room. The younger woman opened her briefcase and took out a stack of papers. "This is a settlement agreement. Mr. Anderson's family agrees to compensate you $200,000 for emotional distress. In return, you commit not to disclose any information related to Mr. Kyle Anderson and his family." I laughed. $200,000? Do you think I'm only worth that much? The man stiffened slightly. "Miss Anna, we believe this is a reasonable amount." I looked straight at him. "I don't need money. I need justice." The woman frowned. "Don't be so stubborn. You should think about your parents. Mr. Anderson's family has the means to make your life very difficult." My mother's face paled. I placed my hand on hers. "Mom, please go inside and rest. I'll talk to them." My mother hesitated, then listened to me. I turned back to look at the other two. "I will not sign anything. If you want to threaten me, go ahead. I will not back down." The man sighed. "Do you really want to push things this far?" I nodded. "Yes." They stood up to leave. Before they went, the woman turned back and said, "You will regret this." I closed the door, my back leaning against it, my legs weak. My mother came out of the room, her eyes red. "My child, maybe we should stop." "I'm afraid they'll harm you." I hugged my mother. "Mom, if I stop, they'll just push harder. I can't live my whole life in fear." That night, I received a call from an unknown number. As soon as I answered, a man's voice on the other end said, "Miss Anna, this is John, from the Internal Investigation Department of First National Bank. I was referred by an acquaintance." My heart pounded. "Uncle Tom?" "Yes, I've reviewed the documents you sent. There are signs of money laundering and asset transfers. If you file a formal complaint, my department will cooperate." I bit my lip. "Sir, if I do this, will I be retaliated against?" John was silent for a few seconds. "You will face pressure, but if you don't do it, others after you will continue to be victims." I closed my eyes. "I'll do it." That night, I drafted the complaint. My hands trembled with each line, not out of fear of the law, but because I was officially cutting off all retreat. The next morning, I went with my lawyer to file the complaint. Stepping out of the police station, I felt the strong sunlight. I looked up for the first time in days, taking a deep breath. That afternoon, I received a text message from Vicky from an unknown number. "Anna, I'm locked in my room. I overheard his mother saying she'll deal with you if you don't withdraw your complaint." I replied, "Stay calm. Don't confront them. Try to get evidence. I won't withdraw." I knew that from this moment on, they wouldn't just threaten with words. Indeed, 2 days later, my company called me into HR. My manager looked at me apologetically. "Anna, one of our major partners just withdrew their contract. They said they couldn't continue to cooperate while the company has an employee involved in a lawsuit." I immediately understood this was the first blow of their retaliation. That evening, I told my parents, I might be laid off. My father put his cup down. "If you're laid off, find another job. The innocent have nothing to fear." My mother held my hand. "Don't humble yourself for our sake. I'd rather be poor for a few more years than see you live with your head bowed." A week later, my contract was officially terminated. I didn't cry. I just felt tired. But in that exhaustion was a cold clarity. At the same time, the lawyer reported, "Kyle's family is trying to transfer assets. We need to act fast." I nodded. I knew they were panicking. That evening, Kyle called me from a new number. I heard his voice, urgent. "Anna, you've gone too far. Are you trying to drag my whole family to ruin?" I replied, "You should ask who's dragging whom." Kyle lowered his voice. "Anna, I beg you, withdraw the complaint. I'll divorce Vicky. I'll marry you. I'll give you everything." I gave a sad laugh. "Kyle, you still don't understand. I don't need you anymore. I just need you to take responsibility for what you and your family have done." Kyle's voice began to tremble. "Aren't you afraid? Do you think you can win against my family?" I spoke very slowly. "I don't need to win. I just need the truth to be exposed." Kyle fell silent, then started to cry. I had never heard him cry before. "Anna, I'm truly scared now." I no longer felt pity. I only saw a man finally realizing he no longer had control. I hung up and looked out the window. The city lights came on. Everything still operated as normal, while my life hung in the balance. But this time, I wasn't turning back. I woke up to a feeling of emptiness, no job to go to, no meeting schedule, no deadline messages. The room suddenly felt wider, quieter, and much colder. My mother woke early, made porridge, and brought it to me. "Eat, don't let your stomach be empty." I held the spoon but had no appetite. My mother sat opposite me, looked at me for a moment, then said softly, "I dreamt last night. I saw you standing at a crossroads, with darkness behind you and fog ahead. I called out to you, but you didn't turn back." I gave a faint smile. "I'm still here, Mom." She held my hand. "I'm just afraid you're carrying too much." My father walked out of his room, leaning on his cane, his voice deep. "My daughter isn't as weak as people think." My phone rang. It was the lawyer. "Anna, the police have accepted the case file. They are verifying. Kyle's family has been called in for questioning regarding the money transfers." I asked, "Do they know I filed the complaint?" "They know, so you must be careful." I hung up, looking out the window, a strange feeling in my heart. As if before a storm, the sky is always eerily calm. At noon, I received a call from an unknown number. As soon as I answered, Vicky's trembling voice came through. "Anna, I've been taken out of my husband's house." I shot up. "Where are you?" "I'm at the bus station. His mother said if I keep contacting you, she'll send me to a psychiatric hospital." I was so scared I pretended to faint. I took a deep breath. "Take a bus home to your parents immediately. I'll be there." 2 hours later, I stood at Vicky's parents' gate. She looked much thinner, her eyes sunken, her stomach barely showing a slight curve. Vicky's mother looked at me, her eyes both wary and pleading. The girl told me everything. That family isn't human. I held Vicky's hand. "Stay here for a few days. Don't go back there," Vicky cried. "But they said if I leave, they'll fight for custody of the baby." I spoke slowly. "You haven't divorced yet. You haven't signed any papers about custody. They can't do anything without a court order." Vicky's mother looked at me. "Help us as much as you can. My husband and I only run a small business. We can't fight against them." I nodded, understanding in my heart that this battle was no longer just my own. That afternoon, Vicky and I met with the lawyer. He looked at Vicky's file and sighed. "They're forcing a marriage, restricting freedom." threatening psychologically. If you want a divorce, this will be a favorable case for you. Vicky bit her lip. I'm just afraid they'll harm my baby. The lawyer said, we can apply for a temporary restraining order. On the way home, Vicky asked me, Anna, don't you hate me? I shook my head. I hate those who know they're wrong and still do it. You're just a victim. Vicky bowed her head. If only I hadn't trusted him that day. I interrupted. Don't torment yourself. You're not the one to blame. That evening, Kyle came to Vicky's house. She called me. Her voice panicked. Anna, he's at the gate. I rushed over. Kyle saw me, his eyes bloodshot. Anna, where did you take Vicky? I stood in front of Vicky, blocking him. You have no right to be here. Kyle lowered his voice. Vicky, go home. Mom's got a fever. Vicky stepped back, clutching her stomach. I'm not going back. I'm scared. Kyle turned to me, gritting his teeth. Anna, do you really want to destroy my family like this? I looked him straight in the eye. Your family is destroying itself, not me, Kyle shouted. Do you think you're a hero? I calmly replied. I'm just someone who refuses to be silenced. Neighbors started to look out. Vicky's mother came out. Sir, please leave. We're not welcoming you anymore. Kyle looked at Vicky, his voice softening. Vicky, do you trust an outsider more than your husband? Vicky cried, You lied to me. I don't trust you anymore. Kyle slammed his hand against the gate and turned away. That night, I stayed at Vicky's house. She slept fitfully, constantly startling awake. I sat beside her, listening to her heavy breathing, feeling both pity and anger. In the early morning, I received a text message from Uncle Tom. Anna, the bank has found another suspicious transfer from Kyle's father's company to an offshore account. The police will expand their investigation. I read it and felt a chill run down my spine. They had gone further than I thought. In the morning, online news reported briefly, a retail business in X city is being investigated for suspected money laundering. No names were mentioned, but it was enough for those involved to understand. My phone rang continuously. Distant relatives of Kyle, mutual friends, old acquaintances, each with a different tone. Some advised me to stop, some blamed me for being cruel, some were curious. I didn't answer. That afternoon, Kyle's mother called me. Her voice was hoarse, no longer arrogant. Anna, are you satisfied? Do you want my whole family to go to jail? I replied. Ask yourself that question. She choked. Do you think Vicky is a good person? She's just using you. I said, at least she's not using others as sacrifices. She bristled. Don't think you've won. I hung up. That night, my father's leg pain flared up intensely. I took him to the hospital. My father lay in the hospital bed, holding my hand. My child, if you're tired, stop. I bowed my head. Dad, I've come this far. I can't turn back. My father looked at me, his eyes moist. I don't blame you. I'm just afraid you'll get hurt. I bit my lip. I'll be careful. Leaving his room, I saw Kyle standing at the end of the hallway. I paused. He walked toward me, his voice tired. Anna, my father has been questioned by the authorities 3 times now. I said nothing. Kyle lowered his voice. Withdraw the complaint, Anna. I'll divorce Vicky. I'll leave you alone. I'll pay you. I looked at him. You still think everything can be solved with money, don't you? Kyle hung his head. I'm out of options. I said, you still have options. The option of telling the truth. Kyle gave a bitter laugh. Tell the truth and send my father to prison? I replied, if you don't tell the truth, someone else will go to prison instead of him. Kyle stepped back, his eyes empty. I turned away, my heart aching as if torn apart. But I knew pity at this moment would only make things worse. That night, I sat alone in the hospital hallway, looking at the cold, white fluorescent lights. I thought about the 7 days I had been away. I thought about the words, go find your wife to take care of them. I thought about the time I still believed I was about to have a family. I had lost everything. But precisely because I had lost everything, I had nothing more to lose. My phone vibrated. It was Vicky. Anna. I've decided to file for divorce. I closed my eyes. A tear fell, not out of sadness, but because I knew we had just entered a stage with no turning back. I texted back, "I'm with you all the way." After Vicky's message, I sat silently for a long time in the hospital hallway. The sound of nurses' slippers, the rolling of a cart on the tiled floor, someone coughing softly in the next room, everything was chillingly normal. Meanwhile, my life felt like it was spiraling out of control. I texted Vicky again, "Get some rest. I'll be there tomorrow morning." Then I stood up and returned to my father's room. My father was asleep. His face had grown noticeably thinner in just a few short days. I sat down on the chair and took my father's rough, dry hand. I felt selfish. While I was fighting against an entire wealthy family, my father had to lie here because an old leg injury had flared up again. I whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry." He didn't hear, but I knew if he did, he wouldn't blame me. The next morning, I left the hospital very early. It was drizzling. I stopped by Vicky's house. She opened the door, her eyes swollen but her gaze firmer. Vicky's mother brought out 2 warm glasses of water, her voice trembling. "The girl has made up her mind. She said she'd rather be a single mother than live like a prisoner." I held Vicky's hand. "You're not alone." We went to the lawyer's office together. Vicky signed the divorce petition, her hand trembling but without hesitation. As she put the pen down, she burst into tears. Not for Kyle, but for a shattered illusion. The lawyer said, "We will file the petition today. With evidence of forced marriage and threats, there's a high probability the court will protect your interests." Vicky nodded, tears falling onto her hands. On the way back, my phone vibrated. It was Uncle Tom. "Anna, the police have temporarily frozen several of Kyle's family's accounts. They suspect asset diversion." I asked, "Are you all right, Uncle?" Uncle Tom gave a sad laugh. "I was called in for questioning all morning. His mother treats me like a traitor, but I don't regret it." I said, "You saved me, Uncle." He sighed. "I just hope they don't harm you." At noon, I returned to the hospital to see my father. He was awake and looked at me. "Are you tired?" I shook my head. "I'm fine, Dad." My father looked at me for a very long time, then said, "You're doing the right thing, but remember not to let hatred consume you." I nodded. I no longer felt hatred. I only felt determination. That afternoon, I received a notification from my former company. My contract was officially terminated, along with a brief message wishing me a quick recovery. I read it, not feeling sad. I had anticipated it. I sent a polite thank you email in return. There was no need to burn any more bridges. That evening, online newspapers simultaneously reported that a large retail business was being investigated for illegal money transfers. This time, Kyle's father's company name was explicitly mentioned. Its stock plummeted, and forums were buzzing. My phone rang again. It was Kyle's mother. Her voice was hoarse, no longer arrogant. "Anna, are you satisfied now?" I replied. "I didn't make the news." She choked. "Do you want to kill my whole family?" I said. "Ask yourself who pushed everything to this point." She was silent for a very long time. Then she said softly, "If you withdraw your complaint, I'll let Vicky divorce peacefully. I also won't bother you anymore." I gave a faint laugh. "Do you think I still trust you?" She shrieked. "You're a cruel wretch." I hung up. That night, Kyle called again. This time he didn't yell or threaten. He just sounded tired. "Anna, I haven't been able to sleep for days." I didn't answer. Kyle continued, "My father might be indicted. My mother is devastated. Vicky left. I've lost everything." I closed my eyes. "You lost, because you made the wrong choices from the beginning." Kyle choked. "If only I had chosen you that day." I interrupted. "Kyle, don't say that anymore. You already chose." Kyle was silent for a moment. Then he asked, "Do you still have any feelings for me?" I closed my eyes. "Yes, but not enough to forgive." Kyle broke down. I heard him sobbing on the other end of the line. I didn't console him, nor did I curse him. I just hung up. I sat in the darkness of my room for a very long time. I thought about our 3 years together. I thought about the dinners, the laughter, the promises. I didn't deny that they were once real, but I also couldn't let the past bind me. The next morning, I went with Vicky to the courthouse to file for divorce. Kyle's mother was also there. She looked at me, her eyes as if she wanted to devour me alive. Vicky trembled behind me. I turned and held Vicky's hand. "Don't be afraid," she lunged at me, pointing a finger directly at my face. "You're a destroyer," I calmly replied. "You should talk to your son." She slapped me, a very hard slap. My ear rang. Vicky screamed, "Mom!" A security guard rushed over and held her back. I touched my cheek. It was burning. I didn't cry. I looked at her and said very slowly, "You just created evidence against yourself." She shrieked, "This girl!" The court police drew up a report. Vicky was sobbing uncontrollably. I hugged her. In that moment, I knew everything had crossed the line of reconciliation. That afternoon, the lawyer called. Anna, Kyle's mother could face administrative penalties for assault. This is very disadvantageous for their family. I sat down on a chair, utterly exhausted. I didn't feel happy. I just felt a door had firmly closed. That evening, I returned home. My mother looked at my swollen cheek and burst into tears. "Oh, my poor child." My father came out, leaning on his cane, his eyes red. "Did they hit you?" I shook my head. "I'm fine." My father held my hand very tightly. "You did the right thing. But from now on, you must live for yourself." I nodded. That night, I received a text message from Vicky. "Anna, I'm not scared anymore." I texted back, "Me neither." I understood that from today, I was no longer the submissive girl at the jewelry counter. I had become a woman who dared to stand before an entire powerful family without bowing her head. But I also knew the battle wasn't over. After the slap in court, I thought I was used to everything, but it turned out no pain was like any other. That night, I lay in bed, my cheeks still throbbing, my heart heavy as if weighed down by stones. My mother sat beside me, applying medicine, crying as she did so. "My child, why do you suffer so much?" I held my mother's hand. "Mom, I'm not suffering. I'm just paying the price for refusing to bow my head anymore." My father stood at the door, saying nothing, just looking at me for a very long time. I saw in his eyes not the worry of before, but something akin to pride mixed with sorrow. He said slowly, "From now on, you owe his family nothing." I nodded. That's right. That slap, strangely enough, made me feel lighter, like a crude but definitive end. The next morning, the lawyer called. "Anna, the police have documented Kyle's mother assaulting you at court. Along with the previous threatening evidence, your case file is very strong, but you must be prepared. They will retaliate in every possible way." I asked, "What else do they have to retaliate with?" The lawyer sighed. "They're collecting information about your personal life, trying to tarnish your reputation. They might spread rumors that you blackmailed them, defrauded them, or sabotaged the marriage." I gave a faint laugh. I'm used to it. At noon, Vicky called me. Her voice trembled. "Anna, his mother just came to my house." I shot up. "What did she do?" She yelled at me, called me a traitor, and demanded my parents return the wedding money. My father got so angry he had to go to the hospital. My heart tightened. "Where are you?" "I'm at the hospital with my father." I immediately rushed over. Vicky's father lay in bed, breathing heavily. Vicky's mother sat beside him, her face pale. Seeing me, she grabbed my hand. "My child, that family won't leave anyone alone." Vicky stood in the corner of the room, tears flowing endlessly. I hugged her. "You're not wrong. Don't let them blame everything on you." That afternoon, my lawyer and Vicky's lawyer came to the hospital. They talked to Vicky's family about obtaining a restraining order against Kyle's mother. Vicky's mother nodded repeatedly. "Do it, please. I'm so scared." That evening, the news reported again. a leader of a large retail business summoned for investigation on suspicion of money laundering. This time, Kyle's father's name was directly mentioned. My phone rang non-stop. Acquaintances and strangers alike asked questions. Some pitied me, some sneered, but I didn't answer. Late at night, Kyle called. His voice was hoarse. "Anna, are you satisfied yet? My father is about to be indicted." I spoke very slowly. "I didn't do that. I only spoke the truth." Kyle sneered. "The truth? You destroyed my family." I closed my eyes. "Your family destroyed itself the moment it treated people like commodities." Kyle was silent for a very long time. Then he asked, "What else do you want?" I replied, "I don't want anything from you anymore. I just want you and your family to stop." Kyle gave a bitter laugh. "Stop? Can we stop now?" I hung up. The next morning, I received the official decision. Kyle's father was formally indicted and temporarily detained for investigation. The news spread faster than I expected. The company's stock plummeted, and several stores closed. Kyle's mother was hospitalized due to shock. Kyle had to step up and deal with the chaos. He texted me, "Anna, you've won. Can you please let me go?" I didn't reply. That afternoon, I went with my parents to visit Vicky's father. He was doing better. He held my hand. "My child, I'm sorry for letting my daughter marry such a man." I shook my head. "Don't blame yourself. No one can see a person's true nature beforehand." Vicky looked at me, her eyes red. "Anna, if it weren't for you, I probably would have jumped off a bridge." I hugged her. "You still have your child. You have to live." That evening, the lawyer reported, "Anna, Kyle's family is proposing a settlement. They are willing to publicly apologize, offer compensation, and withdraw all counter-complaints." I asked about their conditions. "They want you to withdraw your complaint and not provide any further evidence." I gave a sad laugh. "If I withdraw, others after me will continue to be harmed by them." The lawyer was silent. Then he said, "I understand." That night, I didn't sleep. I thought about our 3 years together. I thought about Kyle, about the times he used to be gentle. I thought about my parents, about Vicky's father, about Vicky, about the baby in her womb. I understood that if I withdrew, everything might be smoother, but the price would be my silence in exchange for a false peace. The next morning, I told the lawyer, "I will not settle." The same day, I was stopped by a group of reporters outside my house. They asked me all sorts of questions. "Are you the complainant? What is your relationship with Mr. Anderson's family? Are you blackmailing them?" My mother pulled my hand. "Don't answer them." I looked into the camera and spoke very slowly. "I am not blackmailing anyone. I am only reporting the wrongdoings that I am aware of. I am not destroying anyone's family. I am simply refusing to remain silent anymore." The video spread very quickly. That evening, I received an anonymous text message. "Don't think you're a hero. Watch out for accidents." I read it, my hands going cold. I gave the message to my lawyer and the police. My father looked at me, his voice serious. "My child, from now on, wherever you go, either your father or I will go with you." I nodded. I knew they had begun to threaten my life, but I also knew that if I backed down now, I would live my whole life in fear. After the threatening message, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was too scared, but because all sorts of worst-case scenarios began to appear in my mind. Car accidents, falling down stairs, a sudden car crash. I realized that when someone threatens your life, fear is no longer noisy. It silently clings, making every daily action slow and heavy. The next morning, I didn't leave the house. My father sat in the living room reading the newspaper, but his eyes weren't fixed on the words. My mother kept walking in and out, looking at the window, then at the gate. I said, "Mom, Dad, don't worry too much. I'm fine." My father nodded, but his voice was serious. "Don't underestimate them. They've reached this point," the lawyer called. "Anna, the police are verifying the phone number that sent the message. It's likely connected to an acquaintance of Kyle's family." I asked, "Is that enough to charge them?" Not yet. But they will be summoned for questioning. I hung up, feeling my heart grow colder. I knew they were desperate. At noon, Uncle Tom came to my house. He looked noticeably thinner. My mother brewed tea and placed it in front of him. He held the teacup, his hand trembling slightly. "Anna, I've come to tell you something unpleasant." I looked at him. "Please, Uncle." He took a breath. "Kyle's mother is trying to quickly sell a house in her name. She's afraid of asset seizure. She's also meeting with an old acquaintance, someone not reputable." My heart pounded. "What do you mean, Uncle?" he said softly. "She might be planning to hire someone to threaten you, even arrange a fake accident." My mother dropped the spoon. "Oh my God!" I sat still. Strangely, I didn't feel panicked. I only felt a cold sadness. The woman who once sat in front of me sipping tea, discussing a prenuptial agreement, had now sunk to this level. Uncle Tom looked at me. "Anna, you must be extremely careful. I've informed my contacts in the police. They'll keep an eye around your house." I nodded. "Thank you, Uncle." That afternoon, I went to the hospital to visit Vicky's father. I didn't want to be alone at home with the fear. Vicky looked at me worriedly. "Anna, I heard they threatened you." I gave a faint smile. "I'm still alive." Vicky held my hand. "If anything happens to you, I wouldn't be able to live." I shook my head. "Don't say that." Vicky's father looked at me, his voice weak. "My child, I owe you my life." I choked. "Don't say that, sir." That evening, when I returned home, I saw a strange car parked in front of the gate. 2 men stood smoking. When I approached, they looked at me, their eyes cold. One man said, "Are you Anna?" My heart tightened. I nodded. He gave a faint laugh. "Someone we know asked us to deliver a message. People should know their place and not push things too far." My father came out from inside, leaning on his cane. "Who are you?" The man glanced at my father, didn't answer, and turned back to me. "Think about it. Someone like you can't handle the consequences." They got into the car and left. My mother was trembling uncontrollably. "My child." I hugged my mother. "Mom, they're just threatening us." But in my heart, I knew these were no longer empty words. I immediately called my lawyer and the police. They came to take a report and asked for descriptions of the 2 men. A young police officer said, "Limit your outings and call us immediately if anything unusual happens." That night, I slept in my parents' room. I would startle awake at the sound of cars driving by outside. The next morning, Kyle called, his voice tired and tense. "Anna, do you know what my mother is doing?" I said. "You already know." Kyle gasped. "Anna, I beg you, withdraw the complaint. I'll convince my mother to stop. You're putting yourself in danger." I gave a sad laugh. "Kyle, do you think if I help now, your mother will spare me?" Kyle was silent. I continued, "You didn't stop your mother from the beginning. What right do you have to advise me now?" Kyle choked. "I don't want you to die over this." I replied very slowly, "If I die, would you dare to tell the truth to the police?" Kyle burst into tears. "Anna, I'm a coward. I don't dare." I hung up. At noon, the police called. "Anna, we've identified the 2 men from last night as loan sharks with connections to an acquaintance of Kyle's mother. We will be summoning her." I slumped onto a chair. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt utterly exhausted. That afternoon, Vicky called me, her voice panicked. "Anna, his mother came to the hospital." She told me to withdraw the divorce petition. Otherwise, she'll accuse you of hiring people to slander their family. I closed my eyes. "Don't withdraw. Record it." Vicky cried, "I'm so scared." I said very firmly, "You are not alone." That evening, I received a call from the police. "Anna, Kyle's mother is being temporarily detained for investigation regarding threats and hiring people for intimidation. She denies it, but there are witnesses." I hung up, sitting motionless for a very long time. I didn't feel happy. I only felt a sadness so deep that there were no more tears. My mother sat beside me, holding my hand. "My child, this has gone too far." I leaned my head on my mother's shoulder. "Mom, I don't want to send anyone to jail. I just don't want to be killed." My father said slowly, "You're not wrong. That night, I dreamt of Kyle standing in an empty house calling my name. I turned around, but between us was a thick glass wall. He slammed his hand against it, his lips moving. I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear anything. I woke up, my pillow wet with tears. I understood everything was coming to an end. There was no turning back. After Kyle's mother was temporarily detained, the atmosphere around me felt strange. No more threatening calls, no more strange cars parked outside the gate, no more anonymous messages, but that quiet didn't bring me relief. It was like the calm before something completely collapses. The next morning, I went to the police headquarters with my parents as summoned. They needed me to confirm my entire statement, cross-referencing it with Vicky's recording, the threatening messages, and Uncle Tom's testimony. I sat in the small office, the white lights cold, my hands on the table, recounting everything once more. Each time I mentioned it, I felt a little more empty inside. An officer asked me, "Do you want to press charges for the death threats?" I was silent for a few seconds. Then I said, "I just want to be protected. I don't want to die. As for pressing charges, the law will decide." He nodded. "We will review all the evidence." Leaving the headquarters, my father held my hand very tightly. "You did the right thing." I nodded, but in my heart, I no longer felt right or wrong. I just felt tired. That afternoon, Vicky called. Her voice was hoarse but much calmer. "Anna, his mother, has been detained. I heard Kyle is running around everywhere." I asked, "Are you okay?" Vicky sighed. "I just signed the petition for a temporary restraining order. My lawyer says there's a high chance the court will accept it." I softly said, "That's good." Vicky was silent for a moment, then asked softly, "Anna, if you hadn't appeared in my life, I'd probably be dead in that house by now." I gave a sad laugh. "If I hadn't met you, I probably wouldn't have had the courage to see this through." That evening, Kyle called me. This was the first time he had contacted me since his mother's detention. His voice was tired and hoarse. "Anna, can you meet me just once? I have no one left to talk to." I looked at my parents. My mother shook her head. My father said, "You don't owe him anything." I held the phone. "Go on." Kyle choked. "Anna, I'm ruined. My father's company accounts have been frozen. All our partners have pulled out, and my father might go to prison. My mother is being detained." Vicky left. "I've lost everything." I said nothing. Kyle continued, his voice trembling. "Anna, I'm sorry. I know it's too late for anything I say now, but I truly didn't think things would turn out like this." I replied very slowly. "Kyle, what did you expect when you deceived two women at once?" Kyle was silent. I continued, "You didn't choose me, and you didn't choose Vicky. You chose money, and now you're paying the price." Kyle burst into tears. "Anna, if I had married you that day, everything would have been different." I gave a sad laugh. "No, Kyle, if you had married me, you would have done exactly the same thing if you encountered a greater personal gain." Kyle choked. After a moment, he asked, "Do you still have any feelings for me?" I closed my eyes. "Yes, but not enough to forgive." Kyle broke down. "I was truly a coward. I didn't deny it. I just said, 'You need to take care of your own life now.'" I hung up. That night, I dreamt of returning to the Golden Moon Luxury Mall jewelry counter. The lights were still cold and white. I stood alone in front of the display case. No Kyle, no Vicky, just me and my shadow on the tiled floor. I woke up feeling a little lighter. The next morning, the lawyer called. "Anna, Kyle's mother has admitted to asking an acquaintance to find someone to threaten you, but she said she only intended to threaten, not actually harm you." I asked, "What about the text message?" He said, "She claims she didn't directly send it but was involved." I sighed. "That's enough." At noon, I received notification that Kyle's father had been formally indicted. At the same time, Vicky's temporary restraining order was accepted. She texted me, "Anna, the law is on my side now." I read it, and tears naturally flowed out. Not out of sadness, but because I saw that finally the vulnerable were being protected. That afternoon, I visited Uncle Tom with my parents. He sat in his small house, looking much thinner. Seeing me, he gave a sad smile. "Anna, you've made me lose all my relatives." I shook my head. "You saved me, Uncle," he sighed. "I just hope you can live peacefully from now on." On the way home, my father said, "See? Living honorably might bring hardship at first, but not forever." I nodded. That evening, I received an email from my former company. They said after reconsideration, they wanted to invite me back to work because their contract with the other partner had been terminated. I read it and laughed. Things were returning, slower than I expected, but still returning. My mother hugged me. "See? Heaven doesn't forsake the righteous." I leaned my head on my mother's shoulder. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace in my heart. A week later, the first court hearing for Vicky's divorce case took place. Kyle didn't attend. His mother was still detained. His father was escorted in as a defendant in another case. Vicky stood before the judge, her voice trembling but clear. "I request a divorce because of forced marriage, emotional threats, and a complete loss of trust." The court granted Vicky's temporary request. The next hearing would decide custody of the child. Leaving the courthouse, Vicky hugged me tightly, sobbing. "Anna, I'm alive." I hugged her back. "You're just beginning to live." My father stood behind, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You did it," my mother cried. "Oh, my child." I rested my head on my mother's shoulder. For the first time in a long time, I felt as light as a feather. Kyle stood on the steps below. He looked at me for a very long time. I was about to walk past him, but he called, "Anna." I stopped. Kyle walked closer, standing a few steps away from me, his voice hoarse. "I'm sorry." I looked at him, the man I once loved, once trusted, now just a shadow. I said, "Kyle, you don't owe me an apology anymore. You only owe yourself." Kyle cried. "If only I had chosen you that day." I shook my head. "You already chose." Kyle bowed his head very low. "Can you forgive me?" I was silent for a few seconds. Then I said, "I don't hate you anymore, but I no longer have a place for you in my life." Kyle nodded, as if he had just heard a separate verdict for himself. I turned away. A month later, I returned to my old company. Colleagues looked at me with different eyes, no longer curious, no longer wary, only respectful. I started a new project. I worked more, not to forget the past, but to rebuild the future. Vicky gave birth to a baby boy on a sunny morning. She named him Max. I visited the mother and child. Vicky smiled, her eyes brighter than ever. "Anna, I'm truly alive now." I held the baby. He gripped my finger very tightly. I felt my heart soften. Vicky's father held my hand. "You are our family's benefactor." I shook my head. "Don't say that, sir." I just didn't stay silent. Uncle Tom moved somewhere else. Before he left, he came to say goodbye to me. "Anna, I lost my relatives, but I sleep better." I smiled. "You saved several lives, Uncle. Kyle's father went to prison. Kyle's mother lived under probation. Kyle sold their large house and moved to another state. He no longer contacted me. One afternoon, I returned to the Golden Moon Luxury Mall. The jewelry counter was still there, the lights still cold and white, but I no longer felt pain. I stood in front of the display case, looking at the sparkling rings. I didn't buy anything. I turned away. That evening, I had dinner with my parents. Vegetable soup, braised fish, fried eggs. My mother picked a piece of fish for me. "My child, you'll find a better person someday." I smiled. "I'm not in a hurry." My father said, "It's okay not to be in a hurry, but don't be afraid to love again." I nodded. That night, I lay in bed, looking at the ceiling. I thought about the 7 days I was away, thought about the words, "Go find your wife to take care of them," thought about everything that had passed. I no longer regretted. I no longer resented. I only had a sense of freedom. I understood that some people enter our lives to teach us how to stand tall. Kyle was such a person, and I, from today, am a different person. If you've walked with Anna from the days she believed that with love, just enduring would make everything all right, to the point where she dared to stand tall against an entire powerful family, then perhaps you also understand that this is not just a story of a broken romance. It is a story about the value of a human being. Anna didn't win because she was smarter than anyone else. She won because she refused to bow down to injustice. She lost her fiancé, lost her job, lost her reputation in the eyes of others, and even almost lost her life. But in the end, what she kept was the most precious thing, her self-respect and the right to live true to herself. In life, everyone will at some point stand at a crossroads like Anna. One side is silence for peace, the other is speaking the truth and accepting the cost. Not everyone who chooses silence is wrong, but if you choose silence forever, you will get used to being disrespected. And one day, you will no longer recognize yourself. The biggest lesson from this story is not in Kyle, nor in Kyle's mother or the dirty money. It lies in a very simple sentence. Don't stay where you are not respected just because you have been there too long. Love is not endurance. Marriage is not a trade-off. A family is not a place where one person must bow their head for another to stand taller. If a relationship forces you to shrink, to be silent, to blame yourself for faults that are not yours, then that relationship is not worth sacrificing your entire life for. Applied to life, each of us can start with very small things. Dare to say no when treated unfairly. Dare to leave when a relationship only brings you pain. Dare to place your value above money, pride, or gossip. And most importantly, dare to believe that you deserve a more decent life. You don't have to become a hero like Anna, but you can learn one thing from Anna. Don't wait until everything collapses to stand up. Stand up the moment you feel you are being treated wrongly. If you have ever been in a toxic relationship, ever been disrespected, ever had to endure humiliation to keep the peace, then this story is for you. You are not alone, and you are not weak just because you once loved the wrong person. Thank you for reading this far. If this story has touched something in your heart, please subscribe to the channel, share it with someone you care about, and leave a comment. Would you choose silence or stand up if you were Anna? The channel will have many more stories about karma, human nature, betrayal, and awakening. Here, we don't just tell stories. Together, we learn how to live a life worth living.